Have you ever noticed that the people who say, "I just need one chance to change my life," are usually the ones who never get any closer to the life they say they want? They blame the economy. They envy the upper class. They believe the rich are hiding some secret. But the truth is, what they lack isn't money. It's the character required to keep money. Rainer Zitelmann, after hundreds of interviews with millionaires and billionaires, states a harsh truth. The poor and the rich aren't different in their bank accounts. They're different in how they respond to fear, risk, and failure. Most people choose safety. They avoid risk like they avoid bills. They fear judgment more than they fear being broke. They want extraordinary results while living exactly like an ordinary person, afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid to be rejected. Meanwhile, the wealth elite Zitelmann studied almost all share one shocking trait: an irrational level of confidence, so extreme that others think they're insane. They throw themselves into uncertain situations. They endure loneliness, pressure, and doubt, the things most people can't tolerate. They cling to their goals with an intensity that many would call obsessive. If you still believe wealth comes from luck, if you think rich people simply got the timing right, then you're standing exactly where Zitelmann says the psychology of the stuck class begins. This book exposes that truth, not by starting with the market, not with income, but with the emotional habits and psychological resilience that separate the wealthy from the crowd long before the money ever shows up. Part 1. Mindset: the power of irrational confidence. In Rainer Zitelmann's multi-year research, one trait stood out so strongly it was almost shocking. The wealthiest people in America aren't just confident, they're irrationally confident. Not blind optimism, but an unshakable belief in their ability to change their own lives, even when the world looks at them and says, "No way." Zitelmann interviewed people with net worths ranging from tens of millions to hundreds of millions, and what he discovered wasn't a story of luck or privilege. What separated them from the crowd was a deep internal conviction: I will figure it out. Not possibly, but certainly. This wasn't a belief they were taught. It was a belief forged through adversity, the kind of early failures that most people make them fearful, but somehow made them bolder. You see this clearly in America, where success stories are often labeled as the dream. But look closely, and you'll see that the dream doesn't magically appear. It's powered by a level of stubbornness that borders on unreasonable. Just look at Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx. No one believed a door-to-door fax machine salesperson could build a billion-dollar company. Everyone rejected her: manufacturers, investors, advisors, but she kept believing to a degree no one could understand. To Zitelmann, this wasn't luck. It was a repeating psychological pattern found in the wealthiest of the wealthy. According to him, the rich possess an unusually high level of self-efficacy, the belief in their ability to act, far beyond what most people would consider safe. They believe in themselves so strongly that others call it arrogance. But that arrogance is exactly what shields them from the fear society constantly tries to imprint on them. And here's the fascinating part: the more resistance they face, the stronger that belief becomes. Elon Musk once said, "If something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are against you." This isn't motivational fluff. It's the psychological portrait of the wealth elite. They put their belief on the table, like an invisible asset that yields returns bigger than any visible one. But the real question is, why does this irrational belief matter so much? Because most Americans grow up with a very realistic framework. Don't take risks. Don't dream too big. Don't step out of line. When the majority chooses safety, irrational confidence becomes a rare competitive advantage. It allows the wealthy to walk through doors that others don't even dare to knock on. So what about you? How many times have you quit just because someone told you no? How many ideas once excited you until fear quietly strangled them? Zitelmann wants readers to understand something simple but profound. Wealth doesn't sprout from talent. It grows from a kind of belief most of us lost somewhere along the road to adulthood. When you start believing in yourself more than you believe in the limitations of your circumstances, you enter the kind of space only the top 1% ever step into. And that leaves one final question. The question this book wants you to answer. Do you dare to believe in yourself at a level so irrational it could change the entire trajectory of your life?
Part 2. Ambition is serious business, not a dream. In Rainer Zitelmann's research, he noticed a strange but consistent pattern among almost everyone in the wealth elite. They treat ambition as a duty, not a vague dream. It sounds simple, but this mindset is exactly what separates them from most people. Zitelmann found that the ultra-wealthy never feel greedy for wanting more. They don't ask themselves, is this too much? They don't let society lower their expectations to fit in with the average. They treat big ambition as a minimum requirement, a way of living, the same way a soldier must carry a weapon or an athlete must train. It's not optional, it's responsibility. That's why, while most people think of the American dream as something hazy or unrealistic, the successful treat their ambition like a serious project, planned, structured, and executed step by step. Take Jeff Bezos. When he launched Amazon out of a Seattle garage, almost no one knew he had already written a multi-page plan for what he called the everything store. Selling books was just the beginning. His true ambition was set from day one, and nothing about it was vague. Zitelmann explains that the richest individuals often possess a level of goal orientation so intense it borders on extreme. They don't set goals to feel motivated. They set goals because they believe that without aiming for something massive, they would slowly wither away in mediocrity. To them, ambition works like an anchor, pulling them toward the future they chose, even when the present offers zero evidence that it's possible. Many people feel stuck because they think they haven't found their big idea. But according to Zitelmann, the issue isn't the idea. It's the way people shrink their dreams to fit the size of their fears. The wealthy do the opposite. They expand their ambition until they themselves feel uncomfortable, then use that discomfort as fuel to push forward. And here's the most fascinating part. They don't brag about their dreams. They don't use them as emotional fireworks. They prepare quietly, build quietly, endure quietly, through long stretches when nobody understands what they're doing. Their ambition doesn't live on social media. It lives in the repetitive daily actions, often boring, often brutal, but never ending. When was the last time you set a goal that scared you a little, but made your heart beat just a bit faster? When was the last time your ambition was something you pursued with discipline instead of something you only think about in your free time? Zitelmann wants you to see this clearly. The rich aren't ambitious because they already have ability. They gain ability because they dare to hold on to ambitions that others consider too big to chase. If you're not willing to demand more from your life, how can you expect life to give you anything more? Part 3. Embracing risk, where the wealthy break away from the crowd. There's something Rainer Zitelmann uncovered that surprises a lot of people. The richest individuals aren't reckless, but they're not safe players either. They stand in a place most people never dare to step into, the territory of understood risk. Most people see risk as a dark doorway, full of loss, pain, and failure. But the wealthy see that same doorway as the only path toward the future they want. They don't rush in blindly. They stop, observe, calculate, and then walk through with a kind of unsettling calm. Across hundreds of interviews, Zitelmann identified a shared trait. Tolerance for uncertainty is in their DNA. They can live with anxiety, instability, and the possibility of losing everything, things most people try to avoid at all costs. Ordinary people need certainty in order to work confidently. The rich understand that real opportunities never come with guarantees. Look at America and you'll find countless examples. Ray Dalio, today a hedge fund legend, once lost everything and had to borrow $4,000 from his father just to get through the month. But instead of giving up, he treated failure like a variable that needed to be added into his model, the way a scientist adds new data to an experiment. That transformed him from someone who thought he was right into someone who constantly asks, "Where could I be wrong?" And Bridgewater wasn't built on his correct predictions. It was built on the times he confronted being wrong. Zitelman highlights a core belief of the wealthy. They don't avoid risk, they tame it. They learn to turn risk into something measurable, analyzable, and manageable. To them, risk isn't a threat, it's an invisible asset. The more they understand it, the more they profit from it. And the crowd? They like hearing about risk, but they don't like studying it. That's why they invest when the chart is green and panic sell when it turns red. That's why they chase low-risk, high-return opportunities only to discover the appeal was the trap. Most people fear being wrong so much that they never put themselves in a position to be right. What truly separates the wealthiest from the masses is this: they view failure as the cost of buying growth. And when you treat failure as tuition, you stop fearing it. Ask yourself this: in the last 5 years, what decision did you know you should make but didn't simply because the risk scared you? A career you wanted to pursue? An investment you researched deeply? A business idea you kept saving for one day? Zitelman wants us to face the hard truth. If you avoid risk, you're also avoiding opportunity. And the world does not reward those who walk the safe path. It rewards those who dare to step into the space the majority avoids. In the end, the real question isn't, is the risk too scary? It's, is your life worth taking a risk for?
Part 4. The power of focus. Saying no is a skill. The wealthy understand that time is their most valuable asset, often even more important than money. They know that every moment of distraction, every minute spent on something meaningless, is a missed opportunity to create real value. In The Wealth Elite, Zitelman emphasizes that deep focus and the ability to reject what doesn't matter are among the traits that set the wealthy completely apart from the rest of society. They aren't pulled in by hot opportunities, trending investments, or promises of getting rich fast. They've learned to think long-term and direct their energy toward actions that create lasting results. Their focus isn't just about working hard. It's about working on the right things, at the right time, in the right way. In practice, this means they've mastered the art of saying no to almost everything. Investment proposals, networking invitations, attractive side projects that don't align with their long-term strategy. All of these are filtered out. Warren Buffett is the perfect example. He's famous for turning down hundreds of investment opportunities that most people would jump at, all to preserve his mental bandwidth for a small number of truly important decisions. He once said, "The difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything." It's not that they're lazy or lack ambition. It's that they understand selective focus is the fastest path to extraordinary success. In modern American life, this mindset is especially visible among Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. The most successful founders aren't busy attending every call, conference, or networking event. Instead, they choose a handful of strategic projects and spend months, sometimes years, perfecting them. One well-known California startup CEO shared that he had to reject hundreds of business ideas, thousands of partnership invitations, and even potential investors just to maintain absolute focus on a single product. That product eventually succeeded, generating returns that dwarfed everything he had turned down. This level of focus extends into the personal lives of the wealthy as well. They manage their mental energy with intention. They don't consume junk news, they don't waste time scrolling social media, and they don't chase meaningless trends. Their daily schedule is structured like a business strategy, with clear priorities and firm boundaries. Zitelman calls this selective concentration, a crucial mindset that many ordinary people have never learned or practiced. Saying no is also a form of self-protection in an age of information overload. The wealthy understand that mental energy is finite, and only through sharp focus can they spot rare, high-quality opportunities hidden among the noise. They turn refusal into strength and deliberate choice into a strategic weapon that builds long-term competitive advantage. And that leads to a question for anyone who wants to break free from financial stagnation. Are you using your time and energy on what truly matters? Or are you scattering it across things that keep you busy but not better? The ability to say no and focus relentlessly on the right things is one of the fundamental differences between the wealthy and everyone else.
Part 5. Social capital. The wealthy build circles, not walls. The wealthy understand that money may buy freedom, but relationships are the real asset. In The Wealth Elite, Zitelman points out that ultra-successful people don't isolate themselves or hoard everything for personal gain. Instead, they build strategic circles of relationships where knowledge, opportunities, and trust are shared selectively. They don't put up walls to keep people out. They create connections that produce long-term value rather than short-term benefits. This is why you'll often see wealthy individuals behind investment funds, startups, and philanthropic organizations, while still maintaining their privacy and full strategic control. Unlike most people who pour all their effort into chasing money, the wealthy invest heavily in understanding and choosing the right people. They don't join every group or make friends just to appear well-connected. They seek out those who share their vision, their core values, and their ability to collaborate over the long run. A powerful example is Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks, who built his brand not only through great coffee, but through a network of loyal partners, suppliers, and dedicated collaborators. He didn't just sell a product, he sold trust and experience. And those relationships became the ultimate leverage behind the company's explosive growth. Zitelman also emphasizes that lasting wealth depends on the ability to share value without losing power. The wealthy excel at creating value for others while still maintaining strategic control. They know that if their circle is too small, they become limited. But if it's too large and unfiltered, they waste energy and lose control. This is the art of balance most people never learn. You can see this clearly in successful startup founders. One entrepreneur in California shared that raising capital required far more than a great idea. It required trustworthy relationships with investors, mentors, and collaborators. Every meeting was intentional, every piece of advice was curated, and every partnership served a purpose. That network ultimately helped him surpass hundreds of competitors. Without it, even the best idea might never have become a million-dollar company. The wealthy are also deliberate about how they give. They don't offer value blindly. They understand that value given the right way returns many times over. This could mean helping someone's business, sharing knowledge, or making a meaningful introduction, all with the intention of strengthening a circle where every member becomes more powerful together. Through this approach, they create opportunities not only for themselves, but for their entire ecosystem, generating a force far greater than individual effort alone. And that leads to an important question for anyone trying to break out of financial stagnation. Are you building relationships that genuinely create value, or just collecting connections without direction? Are you creating a circle that lifts each other up, or walls that keep you separated from opportunity? Your ability to recognize, select, and nurture the right relationships is one of the core reasons why the ultra-wealthy are rich not only in money, but in opportunity, knowledge, and influence.
Part 6. Financial discipline. The wealthy are better at keeping money than we are. The wealthy understand that making money is only the beginning. Keeping it and managing it wisely is what determines long-term wealth. In The Wealth Elite, Zeidelman emphasizes that financial discipline is one of the most defining traits of the ultra-rich. They don't spend impulsively or chase luxury items just to prove something. For them, money is a tool, a way to create opportunities and invest in things that deliver lasting value, not a means to satisfy short-term desires. The wealthy often establish extremely structured financial systems. They allocate assets according to clear strategies, assess risk levels carefully, and evaluate the earning potential of every investment. A real estate investor in Texas once shared how he tracked every cash flow detail, from operating expenses to risk reserves, and planned years ahead for each property he owned. When the market fluctuated, those plans not only protected his assets, but allowed him to double his profits while many others were forced to sell in panic. Financial discipline also shows up in the wealthy's everyday spending habits. They don't let emotions drive their decisions, they don't chase shopping trends, and they don't celebrate every small win by splurging. Instead, they plan, set long-term goals, and follow them consistently. Money becomes a strategic instrument for building leverage, not just a servant to short-lived impulses. Zeidelman calls this a deliberate asset management mindset, a skill most people overlook, which is why they stay stuck in the earn, spend, struggle cycle, even when their income isn't bad. The essential question for anyone wanting to transform their financial life is this: are you using money to create opportunities, or simply spending out of habit and finding yourself in the same place every month? The wealthy recognize that keeping money and managing it strategically is the foundation of financial freedom, the preparation that allows every investment or business decision to reach its full potential. When financial discipline combines with focus, selective risk-taking, and strong relationship networks, money becomes a wealth-generating engine rather than just a number in a bank account. And this is one of the core differences between sustainable wealth and everyone else.
Part 7. Storytelling and Influence, the Wealthy's Secret Weapon. The wealthy understand that money is only one part of the game. The real power lies in influence and storytelling. In The Wealth Elite, Zeidelman shows that the ultra-rich aren't just skilled at managing assets or making investments, they know how to communicate vision, persuade others, and build trust around themselves. Storytelling isn't entertainment to them, it's a strategic weapon. It opens doors, strengthens relationships, and directs people's attention and belief in ways that create advantage. Unlike the majority, the wealthy don't simply present facts or numbers. They tell stories people can visualize, feel, and emotionally connect with. These stories aren't just about success. They're about overcoming adversity, relentless determination, and the extraordinary mindset behind their achievements. Steve Jobs is a perfect example. He wasn't the strongest engineer, but his ability to tell the story of a product made the whole world line up for an iPhone, iPad, or MacBook. His storytelling didn't just sell devices, it built icons, shaped culture, and multiplied the value of his brand. Zeidelman emphasizes that influence doesn't just drive branding, it strengthens relationships and negotiation power. The wealthy understand that money can buy opportunities, but a compelling story is what turns those opportunities into actual success. They know how to earn trust, inspiring others to collaborate, invest, or support them not once, but repeatedly across their strategic network. In modern American business culture, this shows up clearly in the startup and venture capital world. A founder in San Francisco once shared that investors only truly believed in his company when he learned to tell a vivid story about the vision and the value of his product. Storytelling wasn't just marketing. It was how he proved his competence, clarity, and differentiation, making people want to join his mission. Storytelling is also how the wealthy create influence that extends far beyond money. They understand that every conversation, every presentation, and every narrative, if told effectively, is an opportunity to expand their impact, strengthen their position, and attract new resources. This is why many who grow sustainably wealthy end up rich not just in money, but also in knowledge, reputation, and social authority, all rooted in their ability to communicate their vision convincingly. The question for anyone seeking real change is this: what story are you telling about yourself? Are you helping others see your value, understand your mission, and want to walk with you? Or is your story just numbers, titles, and empty promises? Storytelling and influence are the secret weapons revealed in the wealth elite, the traits that make the wealthy not just richer, but fundamentally different than everyone else. The wealthy aren't different just because of the money they have. They're different because of the mindset they build, the discipline they practice, and the actions they take every single day. From unreasonable confidence, serious ambition, and calculated risk-taking, to deep focus, strategic relationships, financial discipline, and the ability to tell powerful stories. These are the hidden principles most people never truly notice. If you want to understand how these principles actually work, and more importantly, how to apply them in your own life, The Wealth Elite is the perfect place to start. You can find the book through the link in the description below. This isn't just a book, it's a roadmap that will change the way you think about money, opportunity, and long-term success.